Massive BlackBerry service outages worldwide, juxtaposed with people lining up to buy the latest iPhone model, calls into question the future of BlackBerry maker Research in Motion. But is the outlook for RIM as bad as it seems? Well, joining us now from Mountain View, California to answer that question is Ken Delaney. He's a Vice President Analyst at Gartner, specializing in mobile and wireless technologies. Well, Ken, is this latest BlackBerry outage a watershed moment for the company, a possible, game over?
I really consider it an irritant. They've had a number of different outages before. It's always come down to the fact that they haven't done enough disaster recovery planning. And they've promised to do better, yet the events still happen. But the real problem stands around the fact that they haven't been able to really crack the touchscreen market. That's the real big factor that's resulted in the decline of BlackBerry sales.
Well, if you're saying that this is an irritant, are you saying that this was not a major threat to BlackBerry, even though they already have this other issue with the touchscreen?
Well, certainly it's not pleasant. I mean, it's an illustration of how mission critical our phones have become. But I think, the decline of BlackBerry sales were really happening beforehand. And if somebody's going to leave BlackBerry today, it's primarily because they're disappointed with their ability to get the emerging touchscreens. The big growth in smartphones has been in touchscreens to compete with Android and Apple, and RIM just hasn't been successful in that area.
Well, Ken, businesses relied on BlackBerries because they touted them as a secure way to transmit email. The latest iPhone model and some other smartphones now also claim to provide secure email. So do you see Apple and others grabbing market share for RIM among corporate users?
Well, for a lot of our customers, Apple's good enough. And we're in a world today where the IT people don't get to decide necessarily what the users use. The users overwhelm IT. It's a fashion business. They pick what they feel personally is acceptable to them, and IT people have to react. There's no question that RIM is still the gold standard in security, and where high security is required, like in government, financial, and healthcare, there's a lot of mandates about using BlackBerry, but that's becoming a shrinking part of the market. And more Apple is certainly good enough for most of my clients, and certainly something that the end users desire.
Well, Ken, you say Apple seems to be good enough for your clients, but do you see other smartphone businesses cashing in, such as Samsung?
Well, Samsung supplies not only Android devices, but Windows Phone 7 devices and a variety of other things. Their view is whatever the market wants, we'll make. I mean, they're vertically integrated. They're very successful at that. They have great technology. And certainly as Android has grown through all the manufacturers, Samsung's been one of the beneficiaries of that, and they're doing fairly well.
Well, can you put this competition picture in the context of quantifying for us what we can expect in terms of competitors coming in and scooping up market share among the businesses?
Well, I think that you've got a couple of vendors like HTC and Samsung have done fairly well. They're steeped on Android. The big wild card here is Nokia. They've lost share, but now committed to Windows Phone 7. And that product is probably better than people think it is. It's been kind of in the shadows, probably hampered by its name. We said, what if Microsoft had named Xbox Windows Game 7? I don't think many people would have bought it. But now that Nokia is committed to it, and because of their breadth of coverage, they'll probably make a go of it. And into next year, that should probably rise. So they'll probably do a little bit better in that perspective. But Apple is still the dominant growth player here. They keep delivering what people want.
All right, so keep an eye on Apple. Lastly, Ken, what does RIM need to do to defend and possibly even boost its share?
Well, about a year ago, RIM bought a company called TAT, which stands for the Astonishing Tribe, out of Malvern, Sweden. Now, these guys are really good user interface people, and they have the ability to build a competitive touchscreen interface. It all comes down to this. The ecosystem, everything that RIM does depends on their success in delivering a really good touch interface to compete with Android and Apple. Well, TAT has that capability, and if they're able to give those guys a broad mission to really go after and fix this touchscreen interface, not to just evolve what they have today on the playbook and other devices to come, that they should be able to bring RIM back in. But it really comes down to that one thing. If I was going to tell anybody that's watching RIM what to look at, It's how well they use TAT to reinvigorate their touchscreen interface.
All right, so keep an eye on the touchscreen. Thanks a lot, Ken, for joining us.
You're welcome.
Our thanks to Ken Delaney. I'm Fred Katayama, and this is Reuters.